Okay, guys, we're back. Sunny day outside, walking around. So we're back to this English 101. Now, I just want to give you guys a heads up. I put on the blog, I put the paper 2 assignment up. Now, I just, at this point, really, I'm not really dealing with late. People go, when is it due? Well, I'm not really dealing with late papers anymore because it's such a chaotic thing. And so what I would ask you to do is just get me whatever you can get me by like May 14th. Now, I think you should get it to me before May 14th so that you can do rewrites on these things. But I understand that it's like a little bit, so if you give me before May 14th, then you can do a second draft. But I also understand that it's such a chaotic time. And I realize all of this is very tricky, so we're gonna figure it out together. So but I put the assignment for paper 2 up. Now, you've already done an assignment for paper 1. You did that in class, so good job. You have the assignment for paper 2, so you can do that whenever you want. Try to get it to you by May 14th. But earlier than that, if you want to do a second draft and have a higher grade. And you have the paper 3 assignment, which is in the syllabus. You've actually had that since the first day of class. And you can do that whenever you like. Try to get it to by May 14th. But, obviously it's chaotic. But if you get it to me before May 14th, then you can do a second draft. So just try to get me these things as best you can. Now, paper 4, don't worry about paper 4 right now. Paper 4 is going to be an in-class essay about food. That's the David Foster Wallace and the Polon articles that I already gave you guys. If you don't have it, email me. I'll email it to you. And those essays are going to be, and paper 4 is going to be a thing. It's going to be a timed essay that you're going to do on Blackboard, which I know is ridiculous. But that's what the English Harvard wants for this essay, and that one's not up to me. So for now, basically, if you want to pass the class, I'm going to need those 4 assignments by the end of the semester. The only thing you can do about paper 4 right now is read the David Foster Wallace and Michael Pollan articles about food I gave you. Make some notes, ask some questions. We'll get to talking about those soon. But in the meantime, your major assignments are paper 1, which you've probably already done a draft of. You're welcome to send me a second draft whenever you want. Paper 2, which I put up on the blog for you. You can now do that whenever you want and send it to me. And paper 3, which is a paper that involves a little bit of research, and that assignment is in your syllabus. So you get those 3 to me, and then you take the timed in-class essay, which we're going to do later in the semester, and I'll tell you about that when I get some more details on it. But that's going to involve some technology that we're not using in this class so far, and we will get all of that going. So that is where you are with your papers. Also, in terms of grades, I know a lot of people are worried about grades. You're going to have the chance to declare the class credit, no credit, which is also known as pass-fail. It basically means that you won't get a grade, and instead of a grade, they'll just say you passed or you didn't pass. That means that the person with the D has the same, they passed, and the person with the A passed. And what it says in the transcript is, you passed. It doesn't affect your GPA at all. Right now, I don't know what that has to do with financial aid and other kinds of things. Ooh, look, there's a cat. Look at the kitty cat. All right, I like cats. So right now I don't know what the pass fail or credit no credit option and how that works with financial aid and how it works with academic probation, but it shouldn't affect your GPA at all. And that's my recommendation, is that you do that, is that when you're given the option to take the class credit no credit, that you do it. And that way, all you have to do is get me your assignments and pass. And if you can give me a thesis statement and some support, you're going to pass. If you can get me some research, you're going to pass. So it's not super difficult, and that's certainly what I recommend you do. So again, check the blog, watch the videos, comment on the videos. That's your class participation, all of that stuff, and we'll take it from there. I realize it's a chaotic time, and we're figuring it out. The thing for you to remember is there are 4 assignments total in this class, so to pass it, you're going to have to get me the 4 assignments. The 4th assignment is something that you'll do on Blackboard later, and I'll walk you through how to do that. That's going to be a timed essay. And prior to that, you got paper 1, 2, and 3. And you have those in your hands, so we will figure it out. Okay, so now, and take the no credit, no credit option. Do that. I think it's probably a good idea. Okay, with that in mind, let's go back to Socrates. All right, cool. So last time we were talking about Socrates, and Socrates was talking about how people that give speeches and people that use words and people that discuss things, they better know what they're talking about. Because Socrates thinks there are 2 different kinds of talk, 2 different kinds of writing. The word he uses is discourse. And discourse means words. And so he uses the word discourse, which is a nice word because it means both spoken and written speech. Written speech is discourse, spoken speech is discourse, whereas usually we have to say talk or writing, but discourse is the word that means them both. And so Socrates is talking about discourse, and Socrates' issue with discourse is that sometimes people can talk and talk and talk and talk and convince you of things, even though they don't know what they're talking about. You think of the con artist, the used car salesman, the lawyer who knows his client is guilty and gets him off anyway. People can make arguments and win arguments even if they are not interested in the truth. And then there is another kind of discourse that is connected to the truth, the discourse of people who know what's going on, who paid attention, who are studying, who know the truth from falsehood, who know what they're talking about. And it's very hard to tell the difference between these two different kinds of things. And so Socrates is interested in exploring that. And so he talks about that with Phaedrus, and he gives the examples of the speech of love. And so I'm going to pick up where I left off last time. I'm at the bottom of page 16. So right at the bottom of page 16, they're talking about love. And Socrates says, to which class does love belong? The debatable or to the undisputed class? Phaedrus says to the debatable, clearly. Right? For if it did not, do you think love would have allowed you to say as you did, that he is an evil both to the lover and the beloved and also the greatest possible good? Right? Capital, meaning correct. So he says, of course, love is one of those debatable things. One of the ways you can tell it's debatable is that there was a whole speech about why it was good and a whole speech about why it was bad. That's how you know it's up for debate. Things that are not up for debate, people can't write, pro-contrary speeches on. So let's take a look at where this conversation goes. So Socrates says, he says, but will you tell me whether I define love at the beginning of speech? For having been in an ecstasy, I cannot well remember. And by the way, he can definitely remember. He's just kidding. Socrates makes a lot of weird jokes, and one of them is that he says that I didn't make that speech. The gods inspired me to make it, so I can't remember. Did I define love? He knows. He knows exactly what he did, but he's kind of screwing around with Phaedrus a little bit. He's playing little mind games with Phaedrus because Socrates is a sneaky guy. So Socrates says that they talk about how to define. And we talked about this last time. The last video I did, we talked about how you have to define your terms. That's how we got to the is a burrito a sandwich, is a taco a sandwich. You got to define sandwich. And Socrates says, well, you better define the nature of love. And Phaedrus says, yes, indeed you did, and make no mistake. And Socrates says, well, then I perceive that the nymphs of this and the Pans of that, these are like the immortal gods who inspired me, were far better rhetoricians than Lysias, the son of Cephalus. Right? He basically says, listen, I am. Socrates tries not to brag, and so in this joking way, he says, well, it's not my speech, it was inspired by the gods, and he lists off some gods that inspired him. And he says, I guess those gods who spoke through me must have been better at doing speeches than Lysias, because Lysias talked and talked about love, but he never defined it. And the gods who inspired Socrates defined it. Now, really, Socrates is just smarter, and he knows to define things he's talking about. But he likes to pretend that he didn't really do it. Alas, how inferior to them he is, right? Lysias is not as good a writer as the gods because he forgot to define love. But perhaps I am mistaken, and Lysias, at the commencement of his lover's speech, did insist on our supposing love to be something or other which he fancied him to be, according to his model, and he fashioned and framed the remainder of his discourse. Suppose we read the beginning over again. If you please, but you will not find what you want. Read, that I may have his exact words. Notice that one of the things Socrates is doing here is he's going for examples. He wants quotes. He says, this is exactly one of the things I love about this is this was written 2,500 years ago, and Socrates is doing the exact same stuff that I ask my students to do in my class. And so my students will often say, well, this guy never defined love when he started his speech. And Socrates says, yeah. Let's get an actual quote to talk about. That's exactly what I want you to do in your papers, is to quote things. One of the kinds of papers that do badly in this class are often papers where they forget to quote. My students often will just, I think partly it's because they don't understand what they're reading. They kind of remember stuff from class, and so I give them a quote, and they quote it. They'll put the quote, and they'll go, I agree with Plato. And then they just tell me about themselves, and they don't really talk about Plato or his words or his ideas because they don't really remember them. But part of this is reading and quoting and discussing the quotes, and that's why I gave you that handout on exactly how to do that. Okay, so I've hit my 10-minute mark on this video, and I will see you guys in the video right below this.